Most people never notice it, but there's a quiet difference between thinking all day and actually using thought. Thought isn't just mental noise, it's a signal. And like any signal, it only works when it's tuned correctly. Almost everyone walks around broadcasting all kinds of inner chatter, worries, plans, comparisons, fears, without realizing that none of it reaches the deeper intelligence inside them. The inner spark stays quiet, not because it's absent, but because it's never addressed in its own language. People assume thinking is random. Something that just happens to them. A background hum they have to endure. But that assumption alone is enough to keep their deeper awareness offline. Because if thought is random, there's nothing to refine, nothing to aim. And so the mind runs on default settings: protect yourself, get ahead, avoid loss, seek comfort. These patterns feel normal because they're shared by nearly everyone. Yet they're also the very patterns that keep higher awareness dormant. Long ago, certain seekers noticed something subtle. Hermits in dry landscapes, contemplatives in stone rooms, wanderers who spent years observing their own minds. They all reported the same thing in different language: not all thoughts are equal. Some thoughts are heavy. Some are empty. And some are luminous. Only the luminous ones changed anything. To understand this, it helps to sort thoughts into simple groups. The first group is survival-based thinking. This is the voice that asks, am I safe? Am I respected? Am I getting enough? What if I lose this? What do they think of me? It's the voice of self-protection, status management, and fear. It isn't evil. It evolved to keep the body alive. But it's narrow. It contracts awareness down to a small, anxious point. When this kind of thinking dominates, everything feels personal and urgent. Even spiritual ideas get bent into ego shapes. How do I become special? How do I awaken faster than others? These thoughts operate at a dense frequency. They loop, repeat, and reinforce themselves. And no matter how intense they feel, they never awaken deeper consciousness. They can't. They're tuned to survival, not truth. The second group of thoughts is neutral. These are practical, functional, almost invisible. What time is the meeting? What should I eat? Where did I park? They help you move through the day. Without them, life would fall apart. But they don't point inward or outward, they just move sideways. They carry no charge. No recognition. No awakening signal. Many people live almost entirely between these two groups. Survival thoughts when emotions spike, neutral thoughts when things are calm. From the outside, their lives look full, busy, productive. But inside, something remains untouched. They meditate occasionally, read spiritual ideas, maybe even believe in something higher. Still, nothing fundamentally shifts. The reason is simple: neither survival nor neutral thinking speaks to the deeper layer of awareness. There is a third category, and this is the one most people never learn to use deliberately. These are recognition-based thoughts. They don't try to fix anything. They don't ask for improvement. They don't bargain or beg. They simply recognize what is already true. These thoughts sound quiet at first. Almost too simple to matter. Statements like, awareness is watching this experience. Or, what I am is prior to what I think. Or, this moment is arising within a single field of consciousness. There's no emotional drama in them. No striving. But they carry a different quality. A clarity. A lightness. When such a thought appears, even briefly, something responds. Not emotionally, but structurally. The mind becomes spacious. The body softens. Perception widens. This is not imagination. It's recognition. Awareness noticing itself. The ancient teachers didn't frame this as belief. They warned against belief. Belief still belongs to survival thinking. It wants certainty, security, a solid ground. Recognition is different. Recognition doesn't argue. It sees. And once seen, it doesn't need defending. Most people never stay with these recognition thoughts long enough to notice their effect. One may appear during meditation, or while staring at the sky, or in a moment of exhaustion. Then the survival voice rushes back in. Was that real? Am I doing this right? How long will it last? And just like that, the frequency drops again. This is why deeper awareness feels elusive. Not because it's rare, but because it's interrupted. The wrong thoughts keep cutting the signal. Think of it like trying to tune a radio. Survival thoughts are on one band. Neutral thoughts sit in the static between stations. Recognition-based thoughts land exactly on the frequency where the deeper intelligence responds. You don't force the radio to play music. You tune it, and the music is already there. When recognition happens, even for a second, you're not thinking about awareness. Awareness is thinking itself. The shift is subtle but precise. And that precision matters more than effort. Most people are trying too hard in the wrong direction. They pile up affirmations, chase emotional highs, or wait for dramatic experiences. Meanwhile, the quiet doorway, simple recognition, goes unnoticed. Yet it's the only doorway that's always open. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing needs to be removed. The problem has never been lack. It's been mistuning. And once that's seen, everything else starts to rearrange itself naturally. Once you understand that recognition is the signal, the whole idea of awakening stops feeling mystical and starts feeling practical. It's no longer about chasing rare states or dramatic breakthroughs. It's about learning how to aim your attention in a very specific way. Not upward. Not inward. But prior, to the place where experience is already happening. Most people hear phrases like higher awareness or divine consciousness and immediately picture something distant. Something above them. Something they need to reach. That assumption alone keeps recognition out of reach, because recognition doesn't move toward anything. It notices what has never moved. This is where the third category of thought becomes essential. Recognition-based thoughts don't describe the world, they describe the position from which the world is seen. That's why they feel different. They're not commentary. They're orientation. A simple example helps. When fear arises, the usual thought is, something is wrong. That thought pulls awareness into the emotion. But a recognition-based thought sounds more like, fear is appearing in awareness. The situation may not change, but the center shifts instantly. You're no longer inside the emotion. You're aware of it. That shift is the activation point. This isn't positive thinking. It doesn't replace fear with hope or anxiety with reassurance. It replaces identification with recognition. And that's why it works. Ancient teachers used different language, but the mechanism was the same. Some spoke of remembering the self. Others said, turning the light back upon itself. What they were pointing to was not a new idea, but a new angle. Consciousness recognizing consciousness. Recognition-based thoughts share a few qualities. They are simple. They don't argue. They don't demand proof. And they don't create emotional spikes. Instead, they produce clarity. Spaciousness. A subtle sense of being aligned with something fundamental. examples are deceptively plain. I am aware of this moment. This experience is arising within awareness. What I am has no edges. When spoken internally, these thoughts don't feel like affirmations. They feel like acknowledgments. As if you're stating something obvious that was somehow overlooked, and that's exactly what's been overlooked. The mind is trained to look outward, to label, to evaluate. Recognition asks the mind to do something unfamiliar, notice its own source. At first, this feels slippery. The ego tries to turn recognition into an object. Am I doing it right? Is this it? Those questions are signals that survival thinking has stepped back in. When that happens, nothing has gone wrong. You simply notice the shift and return to recognition. The question itself is appearing in awareness. That single sentence dissolves the problem without answering it. Point one of the biggest misunderstandings is the idea that recognition should feel intense. People expect fireworks. But intensity belongs to emotion, not awareness. Recognition feels neutral, clear, even ordinary. The power is not in how it feels, but in what it reveals. When recognition-based thoughts are used consistently, something interesting happens. They begin to arise on their own. You'll catch yourself in the middle of a stressful moment and suddenly notice, this is being observed. Not as a practice, but as a reflex. That's when the deeper intelligence starts operating through you rather than being something you occasionally visit. This is why belief has nothing to do with it. You don't need to believe that awareness is fundamental. You just need to notice that you're aware. The noticing is the activation. The rest is commentary. Another key point often missed: recognition works best when it's not mixed with self-improvement agendas. The moment you use recognition to get somewhere, you've shifted back into survival mode. Recognition isn't a tool for becoming better. It's a revelation of what's already complete. This can be uncomfortable at first. The ego thrives on progress, on timelines, on future payoff. Recognition removes the future from the equation. It says, this is it. And paradoxically, that's what allows genuine change to unfold without effort. People often ask how long recognition should be held. That question misunderstands the process. You're not holding recognition, recognition is holding experience. Thoughts may drift. Attention may wobble. None of that cancels the signal. Each return, no matter how brief, reinforces the orientation. What matters is consistency, not duration. A single clear recognition repeated daily is more transformative than long sessions filled with effort. Over time, the mind learns where to rest. And once it learns, it prefers that position naturally. Recognition-based thinking isn't mystical language or philosophical poetry. It's functional. It aligns the mind with its source the same way tuning aligns an instrument. And once aligned, the music doesn't need to be forced. It plays because that's what it's built to do. This is the quiet turning point. Not when something dramatic happens, but when you realize you've been standing in the doorway the entire time. Once recognition is understood, the question stops being what to realize and becomes how to live from it. This is where consistency matters. Not discipline in a harsh sense, but rhythm. A gentle, repeatable structure that gives recognition space to stabilize instead of flashing briefly and disappearing. The simplest rhythm begins in the morning. Not with analysis, not with checking the world, but with orientation. Before the mind fills with plans and identities, there's a small window where awareness is open and unclaimed. In that window, a single recognition-based thought is enough. Something like, awareness is here before the day begins. Not as a ritual, not as a demand, just a quiet acknowledgement. That acknowledgement sets the tone. The way a compass sets direction without moving you anywhere. During the day, the practice isn't silence. It's observation. Thoughts will arise the way they always have. Fear-based thoughts. Planning thoughts. Old narratives looping on familiar tracks. The difference now is that they're seen. And when they're seen, they no longer dominate. You don't need to stop an anxious thought. You simply notice, this thought is appearing. That single recognition removes its authority. If you want to go one step further, you gently replace it, not with optimism, but with clarity. This experience is happening in awareness. The content doesn't matter. The orientation does. Over time, this becomes automatic. The mind starts catching itself. A reaction begins, and something quieter interrupts, not to suppress, but to contextualize. Awareness moves from the background to the foreground. Life still happens. Challenges still arise. But they no longer feel like threats to your existence. They feel like movements within something stable. Evening is where integration happens. Not through effort, but through soft repetition. Sitting or lying down, letting the day dissolve, and allowing recognition-based thoughts to pass through like slow waves. Aware of breathing. Aware of sensing. Aware of awareness. No force. No goal. Just familiarity. This isn't about inducing a state before sleep. It's about reminding the system of its natural resting place. When awareness recognizes itself repeatedly, it stops feeling unfamiliar. It stops feeling abstract. It becomes home. After a week or two, subtle shifts appear. Reactions soften. Pauses lengthen. There's space between stimulus and response. You might notice that silence feels less empty and more alive. That you don't rush to fill every gap. That certain worries lose their urgency without being solved. This is not detachment in the cold sense. It's intimacy without contraction. You're still involved, still caring, still responding, but without the constant background tension of self-protection. The sense of being a separate center managing everything starts to fade. After a month of steady rhythm, recognition stops feeling like a practice. It feels like perspective. Thoughts still happen, but they orbit something quieter and more stable. Awareness is no longer something you visit. It's where you stand. At this point, many people make a mistake. They try to maintain the state. They guard it. They worry about losing it. That worry is just another survival thought. And it doesn't undo anything unless it's believed. Recognition doesn't disappear because you stop thinking about it. It disappears only when it's replaced by identification. The paradox is that the less you try to hold it, the more it holds you. Eventually, recognition becomes the default operating system. Not because you forced it there, but because it's more efficient. It requires less effort than constant self-management. Life feels lighter, not because circumstances changed, but because the reference point did. This is the irreversible shift people talk about, often with dramatic language. In reality, it's quiet. Ordinary. You still pay bills. Still get tired. Still have preferences. But underneath all of it, there's a stable knowing. Experience comes and goes. Awareness does not. Nothing mystical has been added. Nothing human has been removed. You've simply stopped mistaking the contents of consciousness for its source, and from there, life unfolds with a different texture. Less urgency. More precision. A sense that whatever appears can be met, because it's already happening in something that isn't threatened by change. That's the real activation. Not an event, but a relocation. From the noise to the field. From the story to the seeing. From effort to recognition. That if you've stayed with this all the way through, take a moment to notice something simple. You are aware right now. Not as an idea. As a fact. That awareness didn't arrive when you started listening, and it won't leave when this video ends. Everything you've heard was pointing back to that quiet constant. This kind of shift doesn't announce itself loudly. It integrates slowly, almost invisibly, into the way you meet your day. Some days it will feel clear. Other days it will feel distant. Neither matters. What matters is that recognition is always one noticing away. That if this perspective resonated with you, let the practice stay gentle. No pressure. No timeline. Just small, honest moments of remembering throughout your day. Over time, they accumulate in ways the thinking mind can't predict. That if you'd like to explore this more deeply, support this channel by subscribing. It helps keep these conversations alive and evolving. If something here shifted the way you see your own experience, leave a like so others can find this space too. And if you know someone who's been quietly searching, share this video with them. It might meet them at exactly the right moment. Thank you for being here, and for listening from awareness itself.